Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hello and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I am your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip. And with me today, I have the wonderful Megan Shields. Megan is awesome, and especially in the podcast space, right, Megan? And she is the owner and founder, correct me if I'm wrong, of Chime House Media. Is that right?
Yep.
All right,
that's
awesome.
Right.
So I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell us more about Megan.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. Super stoked to be here. Always love connecting with podcasters. So I specialize in Facebook and Instagram advertising for podcasters. So I started Chime House Media back in 2020, when I think a lot of people started doing things when they were like, they love the sweet, sweet freedom. And that's kind of what happened to me. And originally I was in financial services and insurance, on the sales and business development side, and worked my way up and all of that. And then during COVID, it was just like, really don't want to do this anymore. So I made a whole career life pivot all at the same time, because I actually moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
So it was a lot was going on at that time. But anyways, so I started working with Facebook ads back in 2020, and have been working a lot with like online coaches, course creators, and service providers. But about 2 years ago now, a buddy of mine came to me and was like, I'd love to see if you could create a strategy for podcasters. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I'll be your guinea pig. We'll see if it works. And then if it's good, then you can like come on my show and all the things. And it went really great, actually. And so then I ended up just doing like some market research and fully pivoted my business to working with podcasters almost about 2 years ago now. And so all of my clients are business owners with podcasts, where their podcast is part of their content marketing strategy. Because I feel like a lot of times people have their like marketing over here on the left and their podcast here on the right, and they're not really sure how to kind of like integrate everything to work together, but also to get the most out of their podcast and the content they're creating.
Right.
And that's where I come in. So it's been super cool, because podcasters are awesome. And they're just like cool people, and we vibe super well, and it's been great.
That is awesome. And I have a few questions. Okay. So first I want to ask you, before you started really niching down on podcasts, so you were doing Facebook advertising for all niches, all industries, as you said, or just coaches?
Yeah,
or...
I mean, mostly online businesses, because it was 2020, right? So
Right.
like everybody was getting online or really amping up their like online presence or ability to sell online. And so it just happened to be more online based businesses, not necessarily e-commerce, pretty much service providers, because I ended up taking a course called Digital Course Academy with Amy Porterfield, and ended up working with a lot of her students, and doing a lot of live launching and those kinds of things. So people who had digital products and programs. So that's kind of where I've been living for the past 5 years or so. And now it's kind of the same people on paper, but they also have podcasts.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, because and what you said was so spot on, is that, it's keeping the podcast separate from the marketing is something that I think, for me, I can speak for myself. I do it all the time. I'm like, why aren't I marketing my podcast? Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
And here I am like struggling to create content. Right. And I'm like, but I have 40 episodes of this podcast.
Tons of it.
Right. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's, so that's such an interesting thing that you say that. So I'd love to know, in terms of, running ads to a podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
You usually think about running ads, when people think about ads, it's selling a product, right?
Right.
Or service, selling a product or service. So whereas a podcast isn't necessarily offering a purchase, it's more about exposure and visibility and networking and relationships, right? So how do the ads work for something like that versus something you can actually purchase?
Yeah. So I approach it, I have like my signature strategy, which I call the trifecta strategy, which focuses on three key areas of growth. So it's like one big ecosystem that is continuously working. So the first piece of it is the podcast piece. So sending people to the show, getting that cold traffic. So it's a lot of like top of funnel activity, meaning a lot of getting cold people to my clients' business and podcasts and things like that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people come to me and they're like, I'm doing these things organically. I am pushing this stuff out, but it's like, I've burned out my warm audience. It's not growing at the rate that I need it to. And I need more people. I need more people to see me. I need more people to be in my world. And then that way I can convert them. And so that's where the ad piece comes in. So a lot of this is really focused on bringing in new people. So the first component is bringing in new people to the podcast. The second component is actually bringing new people into their email list and helping them build their email subscribers. So again, a lot of my clients are business owners, so their email list is a really big, valuable piece of where they sell their products, services, and programs. But even for people that just have podcasts and want to monetize it that way, like having a list of subscribers is extremely attractive to sponsors and brand deals and things like that.
Sure.
So really helping people like get people into their email list through, if most of my clients use like a free lead magnet or a download or whatever it is. But trying to promote that all the time is like, a lot of people are just getting burned out on social media and they're like, I'm sick of like showing up all the time to like, get a couple subscribers here and there. So if you turn ads on, people are coming in around the clock all the time. So helping them build that base. And then the third piece is actually helping them like build their audience on social media. And I say that with air quotes because it's not like building a following, but what it is taking the content they've already created, strategically repurposing it as an ad and getting the right people to engage with that. And then that creates a custom audience we can use in our overall strategy for retargeting and things like that. So it's a lot of top of funnel bringing new people in. And then I do strategic retargeting with other podcast episodes, possibly other pieces of content, different things, maybe offers that they have. That's where it kind of gets a little bit more personalized depending on the client that I'm working with. But a lot of it is that top of funnel stuff, bringing new people in, like bringing new people into the show. But it all works together, right? So like if people are coming in to the podcast, but then they're also on your email list, then you're emailing them more and more about your podcast episodes. So that then in turn helps your listenership. Then they're seeing more of your content. And it's just like this whole giant ecosystem that works together to pretty much increase everything, including the downloads and listenership of the show.
Right. Which ultimately would lead to more sales and clients of whatever the product or service is, right? Especially
right, exactly.
base. Yeah. The more,
and it depends on what they're selling.
Yeah. I love that. So do you also do YouTube? Did you say you do YouTube ads as well or just Facebook?
Not formally doing YouTube ads yet. That's on the horizon, but as of now, no.
Okay. And isn't it funny you mentioned that this started for you during COVID? Because I have a similar story in that everything changed for me during COVID. I mean, it was obviously a terrible time for our country, but in terms of my professional development, it was really beneficial to have that time to rediscover. And like it was life-changing for me. So I'd love to hear more about prior to when you said you were working in insurance. You were still doing business, you said business development in some way, or so how does that tie into what you're doing now, or is it a completely different animal?
So it's a little bit of both. So when I was in insurance and financial services, I started when I was 24 years old, and I started as like a financial professional / agent. So like it was a commission-based job.
Okay.
And so, but like I wanted the sales training. I was working with a Fortune 100 company. I was like, this is going to help me from a personal and professional development. And I was like, and it never hurts to have sales training because everybody always wants to hire a sales professional, right? So I was like, this will be worth my time. So I, went in, built my book of business, had a lot of success with it. And the way that I did it was actually using LinkedIn and building my brand and connecting with people that way. And so then after 2 years, I got promoted to be a partner because when you're in a sales role and you're good at it, they're like, oh, get promoted and hire more people like you and create more salespeople. And so I went up into the management ranks, which got me further away from the whole entrepreneurial reason why I joined, that career in the first place. But again, I was teaching my people how to use LinkedIn and all that. So I became like the LinkedIn girl, and I was coaching people. I was coaching other managers. I was coaching people across the company. And then when I went to leave and move from Cleveland to Charlotte, I switched firms. And then I didn't know anybody here. So I got on LinkedIn, did my thing. And then people were like, how are you bringing in so many candidates? How are you doing so many interviews? Like, how are you meeting with clients and doing all this stuff? Like, you just moved here, you don't know anybody. And I'm like, I'm using LinkedIn. Like, hello. So then they were like, oh, well, can you work with our marketing department to like teach people? And so I was like, sure. And so again, the same thing sort of happened. So when I went to start the business, I started it on teaching people how to use LinkedIn.
Okay.
And so that was like my first thing. And I was like, it's been a thing that people have been asking me about for years and years, and I'm doing it in my corporate job. And so I was like, I'll start a little side hustle doing that. And then, of course, because our phones listen to us, even though they say they don't,
Yeah, right.
um, I got served a targeted Facebook ad actually about starting a digital marketing side hustle. And it was a webinar funnel. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So I went through, watched the webinar, bought the course, the whole shebang. Because I was like, well, if I learn Facebook and Instagram ads and I know LinkedIn, like those are the three main platforms where businesses are. And this was obviously before TikTok. And so I was like, I think it makes sense to invest in this course, if I'm going to start this side business, whatever. So I did that. I bought the course, I learned the ads, and I did both for about the first 6 months. And then like the Facebook ad piece just really took off. And so I kind of let the LinkedIn thing go within the first year. And I've been doing Facebook ads ever since. So it's kind of in the realm, but a little bit different with how everything kind of got started.
Yeah. No, I love that story. So, two questions I have for you based on what you just said. The first question is this: LinkedIn. Let's talk about LinkedIn for a second.
Yeah.
When you kind of switched gears, right? Did you, because you had built your business on LinkedIn and what you were doing in your sales, and your sales and everything.
Yeah.
Did you have a struggle with LinkedIn, or would you recommend somebody in that situation start a new LinkedIn, or how did you sort of change your LinkedIn audience to reflect what you're doing now?
Yeah, it was amazing, actually. I spent an entire afternoon deleting thousands of
No
people.
way.
And it was great. Like, so when I quit the industry, so like I was a licensed professional, like I was Series 6, 63, like the whole shebang. I had all these licenses, all stuff. And when I decided that I was going to be done, I had this like whole party where like ripped up all my notes, threw a bunch of stuff away. I was like,
That's
that's it.
awesome.
I'm done. I'm going to let my licenses lapse. I don't want to do this anymore. And so then I went on LinkedIn and I got rid of like 3,000 people that I was like connected to on there that like, it was all for trying to get clients for that particular stuff and, whatever it
Yeah.
was. So
Yeah.
I just like cleaned it out, got rid of it. And then just obviously changed like the content that I was, putting out
Yeah.
there and stuff like that. But I was mainly using it for like outreach. I wasn't, I wasn't doing it for like content marketing where I was like, doing all that kind of stuff to try to
Yeah.
attract people to me. I was using it for like direct sales outreach. So yes, I changed a little bit of my content, but yeah, I mean, I used the same profile. I just obviously updated it and then I just purged a ton of the people that I'm like, this is not
Okay.
my ideal
That's,
client anymore. This is not the realm that I'm in anymore. I don't need to be connected to all these finance bros and whatever else. So I just like got rid of a ton of people. It was great.
that's awesome. I'm so glad I asked you that. And I must confess, I asked you that for selfish reasons because I transitioned from real estate.
Mm,
So for the past 17 years, I was doing real estate, right? And then during COVID, I got introduced to digital marketing. And so now
right.
I'm, niched down on funnel strategy and design. And so that's what I want to focus in on my LinkedIn. But I have all these real estate, like it's all real estate people. So I'm going to do
Hmm.
exactly what you just said.
Yep, I would
Yeah.
recommend it. It's
Yeah.
very therapeutic. It just is
I
fun.
know.
And
Right.
afterwards, I was like, oh, that feels great.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, cool. All right. Now, my second question is this because I, like I just said, I also started the digital marketing in 2020 with the Facebook ads. So, Facebook Ads Manager
Yep.
changes. Professional dashboard changes so much. Their ads rules, their guidelines, everything changes so much.
Hmm.
How, two part question. How do you keep up with it? because every time I go in there, it's different. And secondly, what advice would you give to somebody that's trying to do their own ads and can't figure out the ad dashboard 1 month to the next because it's so frustrating?
Mhm. Yeah. So honestly, like the changes are nonstop. They're
Yeah.
all the time. And like Meta never tells us. And honestly, that's part of the reason why I decided to like let the LinkedIn thing go and focus just on Facebook, because there was so much movement going on. And it also, like 6 months after I started focusing on the ads was when like the whole original iOS update changed, like
Oh,
happened, and there was pixel problems, and it was all about like data privacy and all these things, which
yeah.
have since settled down. Um, but it was just a lot. And like LinkedIn I feel like has been going through an identity crisis for years. And I was like trying to keep up with both was just a lot. So I was like, I'm gonna go all in on Meta, whatever. So yes, there are a ton of changes. And even as an ad manager and someone that does this all the time, it's like it's still frustrating. Like the user experience is still rough, but it's like I just know it so well because I do it all the time. So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
people are always like, clients come to me, they're like, I'm not stupid, but like I just, and I'm like, I know you're not. Like it's not you. I'm like, it's Meta. Like it's terrible. Like even though, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds, but like it's still not a great experience. So, if anybody's listening that has had frustrating moments, like
Yes.
you are not alone. It happens to me all the time. And so, the way that I really keep up with it, honestly, is like I'm in there every day and I just see the changes. Like that's literally the only
Yeah.
way to do it, because Meta, like now they're starting like these like newsletters and stuff, and they'll like kind of tell you like stuff that's coming, but it's a lot of it is seemingly just more reactive. Like I'm just in there and I'm like, oh, that button is new, or that feature is new. That wasn't there yesterday. And I literally have accounts also, like, because I manage multiple accounts.
Yeah.
I have some accounts that have some features, some accounts that don't have other features. Like it's not the same for everybody. And like it's terribly irritating, especially the United States versus Canada versus the UK. Like things look different depending on where people are. And so it's frustrating. And so the way that I keep up with it is I just I'm in there all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously I get like, emails from Meta because I'm an agency partner. So they will send stuff every now and then. That's like more so the big changes. But the small micro stuff that changes all the time in there, it's like the only way to really know that's happening is just being in there, unfortunately. Like, and obviously you can subscribe to like Social Media Examiner and like John Loomer Digital, like that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like those are other professionals that I also learn from that put out, educational content around different platforms and kind of what's going on. So it's just kind of having everything together and, also
Yeah.
being in there all the time. Um, and then the second question you asked was about if somebody was starting their ads. What was the rest of the question?
It was just, you basically answered it. It was really, what advice would you give to just not get frustrated and give up? Because a lot of people do, I
Mm-hmm.
know, because I was running ads was real estate, but it was
Yeah.
still, frustrating, especially when they came out with the special ads category, which I'm guessing you don't have to deal with too much, right? Or do you?
Not so much. Not so much, because really it's housing, finance, credit, and employment, but they're
Right.
also starting to put in or uh social issues, credit, finance, housing. So like they're starting to put like financial services in there now, which again, of course, a lot of people from like my previous life, I do have some financial service clients that I consult for. And so I do a little bit with the special ad category, but not a ton. I try to kind of stay away from it a little bit. But I
Yeah.
mean, now with the way targeting is going, anyways, like it's becoming more broad anyhow. So, like, that actually helps people that are in the special ed category
Yeah.
anyway.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a type of podcast that does better than other types of podcasts in terms of follows and likes and
Whew, that's a good question. It's hard to say because I haven't really worked with people that are a podcast for the sake of a podcast, right? Like all of my clients are business owners, so like their content is highly valuable. Like what they're
right?
putting into their show, what they're talking about, the areas that they specialize in, like their listeners get a lot out of it. So for
Right.
me, it's kind of hard to say because I haven't like whatever worked with someone that has a podcast about Bigfoot. Like those, those really aren't, my ideal clients at this point
Okay.
in time. And so all of my clients are mainly business owners. So it's really kind of hard to say. But they all tend to do, they all tend to do well. All my clients' podcasts tend to do well from like an ad standpoint because I think they just it's all about good content. You got to have
Right.
good content. And that's really what it comes down to, because all ads do is get more people to a place. And if
Right.
that place is good, whether that's content, whether that's a product or a service, then it's good. But if it's not, then it's not, you know?
Right. Absolutely. So I want to kind of change gears here for a second and talk about, the show is called Born or Made. And so really focuses on the idea that, we as entrepreneurs, as Russell Brunson calls us, the 1% crazy, right? Um, are we born that way, do you think? Or do you think that those sort of tendencies can develop over time based on nature versus nurture? So I'd love to hear your experience and talk about little Megan. Did you did you
Hmm.
ever have any experiences as a young kid that maybe led you to believe, okay, I need to own my own business. I cannot have a boss. I cannot live in a box. I need to have my own business.
Yeah, I think, like, I personally believe that, like, you're born with certain things, and
Sure.
then your environment brings out certain things, and the other things tend to fall to the wayside depending on what's happening in your life. And so for me, there was nothing as a kid. Like, I'm not one of those stories where I'm like, I had a lemonade stand and I used to like shovel snow. And,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't a little baby entrepreneur. Nobody in my family ever was. I literally knew nothing about it. Um, and so, it's one of those things I think that has developed in me based on how I've grown and what I want out of my life. And what I want out of my life, a job is not going to give me. So when I started in financial services and insurance, I liked the ability to, learn at a Fortune 100 organization. I was like, I'm going to get great sales training. I'm going to learn and develop. But I also liked that it was entrepreneurial, it was commission based. I could make my own schedule. I was like, that's pretty attractive, because like
Yep.
I was in the service industry for 10 years. I was a server, and I really loved like working at night, being able to influence what I made. And so it was like these little steps along the way kind of fed the next step. And so when I was in insurance, I liked the entrepreneurial part, but then when I got promoted to a manager, I was just like, I got further away from it. Like then I was like an employee, and I was
Yeah.
like,
Right.
okay. And then I had that moment of like, I don't want to do this. Like I was looking at my trajectory, I was looking at my boss, and I was like, I don't want what you have. So like I need to get out of here because that's where I'm going. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was just like things kind of built upon each other. And then when I got to that point where I was like, this career is not going to give me what I want. Like, I want the freedom. I want all of the freedom. Like, I had
Yes.
some, but I'm like, I want all of it. And I was like, so I started the business. And then once I had control over, like, yes, it was entrepreneurial when I was in insurance and stuff, but like, I didn't set the rates, I didn't set the products. Like, there was a lot of stuff. Like, I sold things, but I was like, I couldn't really influence profit margins and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, that was all in the company. I was selling another company's product.
Sure. Yeah.
And so once I started my business and I saw how easy it was for me to sell this, I was like, this is way better. Like, I have the freedom, the flexibility. I can control literally everything. I was like, that's it for me. So it was just like things sort of happened,
Yeah.
building on top of another to lead me here.
And
So
that's
I hope that
that's
answers your question.
yeah, no, I mean that's the way it happens, right? I mean, I have to believe that that shift during COVID led me to where I am. Like I am, we have to believe we are where we're supposed to be, right? Like
Right.
absolutely. And yeah, I love that story. And so I want to ask you about your company a little bit more specifically. But first, I want to ask you that transition from, working, selling somebody else's product, right? Now you have your own very successful company. What was that like in terms of understanding how to run a business? I know that you kind of did some business development, right? Because you had mentioned that during the insurance. So compare that to running your own business and what was that like?
Yeah. So I was pretty much in sales training 3 times a week for like 8 years. So I had a lot of foundational stuff on how to get leads and build a business in that way. But like as far as other things, like, all the marketing and the like funnels and back end tech. So like the insurance and financial services industry is like a very old white dude business where it's like, knock on doors and make luggage tags and like do weird shit
Yeah.
like that. So like the marketing that I was doing, and I say marketing loosely because they were all like, they're keeping the direct mail business alive and well. I will say that. They're like, oh, if you send 15 million mailers, I'm
That
like,
is so true. That is so
but it's like, I'm like, what the hell? So like the marketing that I had learned was like nothing like what I'm doing now. Like funnels and all that kind of stuff did not exist. Like you can't
true.
really
Yeah.
do ads because when you're a licensed financial services professional, like you can't even use testimonials. Like there are so many things that you're like not allowed to do because there's compliance and those things. So like the good thing is I learned how to like meet people and close business and do the sales part. And that's what a lot of people struggle with. And I'm very good at it. But it was like I had to learn all the new like marketing technology and like CRM systems and funnel building and like which now I can do all that. But back then I was like, oh my God, this is a whole nother world of like how to
Right.
build a business. But that's what was like interesting to me because I was like, oh my God, this is so much easier. This is so much easier than the archaic shit that I've been doing. And so it was just so interesting. But like a lot of the, you know, building the business, the LLC, the bookkeeping, and like that kind of stuff, I didn't know too much about that. So it did help me in a lot of ways, but it's definitely been a ton of learning
That's
since
the part.
I've made that transition.
Yeah, that's the part that's for me the hardest, is the bookkeeping and the actual like legality stuff of owning a business was a little challenging.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and now I went to your website online. Do you run your business with your husband or is it a partner? Yeah, it is your husband. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's my husband. We both have been in the business now together pretty much since the beginning.
That is
But
awesome.
yeah,
Can we talk about that a little bit? Like, what's it like?
yeah.
What's it like, A, working with your husband, but B, like working in the same business, owning the same business together? Is that awesome?
Yeah, it's has its awesome moments. I will tell you, it has been a hell of a journey. If anybody tells you that it's like magical working with your husband, like that's not true. It's very difficult. Like it took us a while to really get into the groove, and what
Yeah.
we've realized is like we're better if we are like under the same umbrella but working on different things. Like
Okay.
we can't work on the same client because we just our communication it just is not good in that way, which is so interesting because like in our marriage our communication is great, like it's perfect, but it's like in the business it just wasn't working and I was like this is not great. So yeah, so it's interesting, so he's kind of has like his clients and stuff and I have like my clients, but we're still kind of under the same umbrella, and it's great this way. It's just been an interesting journey up until this point where it's just it's hard like working with other people, and I'm just very like starter, do it, fail fast, find out that kind of stuff. Where like he, was an employee for a very long time. Like I had 8 years of entrepreneurship under my belt. So I was already kind of like had that
Yeah.
kind of fire starting going. So it's been a lot of personal growth on his end too. And so there was just a lot of movement that was happening in the last like 5 years. But I feel like we're finally in like a really good groove. So it's great because like we have the flexible schedule. Like every Friday we get up and we go have breakfast together and we go shopping and we do like the fun
Oh,
things we like to do. And it's great because we can enjoy that time together. But from a business standpoint, obviously it did, it's challenging and it had its challenges, but I feel like we're in a good spot now, in a
that's
good groove.
that's awesome. So, did you? How did it come to be? Was he in this business before and you kind of met, or did you train him, or how did that work?
Yeah. So he was actually an environmental health and safety manager. So he was in the EHS space. That was like his corporate profession. That's what he went to college for. And when we moved to Charlotte, I had already had a job. I was switching over to a different financial services firm. And I was like, let's just get to Charlotte. Like I took like a $50,000 pay cut. I was like 1099 because I wanted
Yeah.
the flexibility to start something different. I was like, let's just like get to Charlotte and we'll figure it out. And then COVID happened like 2 months later after we got here. And so he was interviewing. And of course, like companies like, we don't know what's going on. We don't know if we can afford to hire. Like we have no clue. So like everything like stopped. And so when I like took the course, he was just like sitting around. And I was like, well, why don't you go through this course and like learn ads and see if it's something that you like? And, we can kind of just like see what happens. So that's what he ended up doing. He actually got us our first client, and he really, really liked it. And so he actually never got a job when we in Charlotte, I mean. And so he was working in the business, really, really early on. And he was licensed too and kind of gave everything up and
Wow,
we're doing
God,
it.
I love that story. And I laugh because my boyfriend, who I love dearly, but doesn't even know how to download a file. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So if I tried to bring him into my business, that would not be successful at all.
Right.
He's in the trades and I love him. He's great,
Hmm.
but not very computer literate, and we joke about it all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that
Yep.
that's just awesome that you both found the path that is works for both of you, and the company is so successful. So talk about your company. We know what you do. Your company's
Hmm.
called Chime House Media. Tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
how that came to be, and where you're at and what's in the future for you. Anything exciting?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're just in like a big growth phase right now. I feel like we're really hitting the stride in the podcasting space. I spoke at PodFest last month. I'm speaking at Podcast Evolutions in March. So I'm starting to really kind of be out there more and working on solidifying myself as like the Facebook ads team for podcasters.
I
Because
love it.
I feel like podcasting is really obviously it's been around for a long time, but I feel like podcasting from a business perspective, I feel like is like really in that prime. And so we're just really focusing on growing. We've hired some folks this year. I finally have an assistant, things like that, focusing on, getting some other hands in the business to help me do
Yeah,
the things and not being, doing everything. And I joined a mentorship program this year, which I'm really excited about. So we're really in growth
right.
mode, growth and scale mode. We've been very successful from the beginning, which I'm very grateful for. But now it's just about like doing it bigger and seeing what we can do.
I love it.
So
And I have to
stay
tell
tuned.
you, yeah, no, absolutely. And I have to tell you, I've interviewed quite a few people, even people I haven't interviewed, I've spoken to online, and I have never found or seen a specifically podcast Facebook ads expert. I mean,
Yep.
Facebook ads, sure, but specifically for podcasts. And I want to hit on that real quick because a lot of people, especially in the people I meet for my clients, they're afraid to niche down. And sometimes niching down is the best thing that you can do, especially if you're the only great player in that space.
Yeah.
So I,
Hmm.
I think that's
Yeah.
amazing what you're doing.
Yeah. And that's why, like, last year, like, for the first few years, I was kind of like, I don't want to have employees and like, blah, blah, blah. And then I was really like self-sabotaging myself because then I'm like, well, what am I even doing this for then? Like, if I'm not going to grow this, like, what the hell's the point? Like,
Yeah.
otherwise, I like am just my own boss, but I'm like still working a full-time job. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I want the perks, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I was like, last year, I was like, I'm gonna grow it. That's the whole plan. I'm like growing and scaling. And so I was like, whatever, invest in the mentorship program, hire people. I'm like, we're doing it. Like, because nobody is doing this. And I was like, and it's gonna continue to grow. So I was like, if I can lead from the front, because my goal is I eventually want to create like a certification program to teach people how to do this. But I was like, a certification program means nothing if you don't have the brand and people don't know who the hell you are. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
certified by ABC, and you're like, who the hell is that? So for me this year it's growth, it's brand building, it's being out there and being that person that like is the Facebook ads person for podcasters. Everybody knows who I am because it is so niche and nobody else is doing it. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get out there and really own it.
That's awesome. Well, I will absolutely spread the word, as will this episode. Let me
Thank
ask you,
you.
do you have your own podcast?
I actually don't. I have a private podcast that I've used for lead generation, but I just do not have the capacity for a show yet. And
Yeah.
that's part of the thing is like, and then it's like I also struggle with like, what would I want the show to be like? Because I'm like, I'm not going to sit around talking about Facebook ads. Like that sucks. You know what I mean? So I'm just like trying to figure out what I want it to be. My husband and I have talked about starting one together, but we just haven't, working with podcasters. I obviously know like what the commitment is like, and the
Yeah.
work that goes into it. And I'm like, I just don't have the capacity for that at this point in time. So eventually, but
Yeah.
not yet.
Okay, we'll stay tuned. All right, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so Megan, we're gonna wrap up here soon, but at the end of every episode, I always ask two or three, if I can think of the third one, but usually two random questions just so that we can get to know you. And what's funny
Yeah.
about that is one of the questions I always ask is about something you mentioned earlier in the episode, which is pretty
Okay.
funny. Do you believe in Bigfoot? Yes or no?
Yeah, I do. I was a cryptozoologist in my past life, I wish, but
Oh, no
so
kidding.
I'm really into that stuff. I love ghost shows,
That's so
Bigfoot,
is my boyfriend. He's
is
obsessed with the Bigfoot show, Expedition
Expedition
Unknown.
X.
Or
Unknown?
Expedition
Yeah.
X. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Josh Gates. I've like watched
Oh
all the
my
things
God,
Josh
right?
Gates.
Isn't he awesome?
Yeah,
I love that
I know. I
show.
love him.
Have
I
you
love
ever
him.
heard of there's one in Charlotte, The Secret, the book with all the hidden prizes?
Yes. Yes.
We're obsessed with that. I have the book.
Yeah.
I love it. There's one
Are
out in
you trying to
Boston.
figure it out? Oh my God, that is so funny. Yes, because there was one. Yeah, and then we were just in St. Augustine, and I was like, "There's a
Yeah.
gem here." I was like, "I
Yes.
don't know where because they didn't
Yes.
find it," but I was like, "It's here." And yes, we got like super into that, and I'm like waiting for like more episodes to come out because I'm like he was really into it, so I'm like I know that like people are
Yeah.
probably reaching out to him about
There's
it.
been
So
like 3 or
yeah.
4 episodes. So for anyone listening that doesn't have any idea what we're talking about, there are these secret treasures hidden in many different cities in the United States. I forget the guy's name that planted them. Do you remember?
No, I don't
Okay.
remember.
Some guy, I think he was an author or an artist. Before he died, he planted these hidden treasures deep in the ground and all these, and he wrote a book with clues and written clues like verses and also
Poems,
pictures and
yeah.
poems, right? And
Poems
so
and like yeah, images that you have to like crack the
and
code on like
they're
what's in the
super hard. I mean,
picture.
these are
They're
not
super
easy.
hard.
Right. So we have
No.
this book. Brett and I have been trying to figure out. Yeah. So anyway, that is so cool. I
You
love that we
have to
talked
keep me
about that.
updated
I
on what
will.
you find out about that because like literally my husband and I are super into that.
Yeah,
Also,
well, the one in Boston's already been found. I'm so mad, but I swear I know where the one in Milwaukee is, and uh, yeah, I'll keep you posted.
please do. That would be amazing.
Okay, awesome. And then the second question is this: if you were able to have the opportunity to go to have dinner with anyone at all, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh Lord.
I know that's a hard one to answer quick.
Um, Travis Taylor. I don't know. Okay, so talking about cryptids and stuff. Do you
Yeah.
watch Skinwalker Ranch?
No.
Oh, okay. So he's an astrophysicist who is on Skinwalker Ranch, and they have been doing just crazy tests and all these because like the whole thing about Skinwalker Ranch is like they're skinwalkers and it's all about like the Native Americans, and it's not that. It's way more than that. There's like alien portals. I mean, crazy stuff,
Okay.
which people are probably like, this girl was cool, now she's nuts, but whatever.
No.
Um, he's an astrophysicist and like he went there because they want to have like all the angles, you know what I mean? Like looking at all this data and stuff and testing all these things. And he's just, yeah, he was on like Ancient Aliens Live and all this kind of stuff. But anyways, I would love to like just hear about like Skinwalker
Oh, that's
Ranch and like what
cool.
they're doing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So
So, would you say it's a binge-worthy show? Because I love to find a good show to binge watch. Yeah. Okay.
yes.
All
And it's
right.
still actively live. And the funny thing is, my husband actually met one of the guys that's on the show yesterday. So I'm like, I might actually get to do this.
Oh my God, how weird is that? That's
Oh, but I'm like
awesome.
so into the show because it's like they're taking a scientific approach to all this stuff and literally studying like portals and frequencies and electromagnetic stuff that's going on the ranch, like all these things. It's like scientifically proven. Like it's not like hocus pocus bullshit. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
So it's like I've been sucked into it because it's like literally proving quantum physics right in front of our eyes. And so I've been like crazy into it, which is why I would love to like sit with Travis and be like, tell
Okay.
me all the, you know
Now
what I
you got
mean?
me curious. I'm gonna go watch an
It's
episode
good.
because don't they say
Yeah.
that, not to bring back up Bigfoot again, but don't they say that about Bigfoot about how he like goes through portals into other dimensions and that's why nobody can find him because he goes through
I
these
have heard that actually recently on Expedition X. And I was
Yeah.
like, that was the first time that I had actually heard people talk about that he is not necessarily in our plane, but he's coming and going. And
Yes.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, when they
Anything's possible.
hopefully they'll find him on Expedition X. So,
Yeah. I would love that for Josh Gates for sure.
right. Anyway, Megan, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad you came to chat with me today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks everybody for watching the Born or Made podcast, and we will see you next time.